This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and the Samsung Galaxy Tab S2 that we just reviewed isn't the only big screen AMOLED Android tablet on the market competing for your high-end dollars. This is the $499 Dell Venue 10 7000, specifically the 740 model, a 10.5-inch AMOLED display. And this is your more typical widescreen aspect ratio. Even though it doesn't look so, long, thin, rectangular, it is 2560 by 1600 resolution. Interesting design here, not unlike the Lenovo Yoga Android tablets with this kind of barrel hinge going on. In this case, there is no kickstand on the bottom, though. As you can see here, this houses the battery, just like the Lenovo, and the speakers, but what it does is it clips into the optional keyboard dock right here. Keyboard dock, another $129, and it just goes right in there, and it's very sturdy. It's not wobbly. It works like a hinge, like on a laptop. You can even pick it up by it. It's a heavy combo, though, because this tablet weighs 1.3 pounds, kind of heavy for a 10-inch tablet in Android land, and the base weighs 1 pound, so 2.3 pounds total. I think Dell hopes or thinks that most people are going to buy this together as a package, and honestly, it does have the ergonomics of a laptop. They've done an amazing job with this keyboard here. It's a dream to type on. We're going to look at it now. To look at this, you would think this is a laptop review, wouldn't you? Or netbook size when you see it within the scale of my hands. Well, it's not. This is an Android tablet, the Dell Venue 10 7000 model. Now, when we flash this on our Samsung Galaxy Tab S2 review for a little contrast, a couple of you thought this was ugly. I think it's actually kind of neat looking in a futuristic way. Granted, it's certainly not your standard Android tablet design. This really stands out right here, the barrel section that is permanently attached to the tablet with the speakers right there. Nice big loud speakers. The chromed hinge, which has notches for actual connectors here. This is a Bluetooth keyboard, by the way, but things like backlighting for the keyboard are activated there. And Dell's usual, I don't know how to put it, American muscle car, rugged looking design kind of thing going on here. Matte black, this part is plastic, the barrel area is metal. You can feel the difference. The barrel area gets cold, this doesn't. Matte black is pretty cool, but this is going to show fingerprint oil like crazy. By the time we're done with this review, you're going to see how, well, kind of icky it looks. This funny line over here is because it has the Intel depth sensing 3D cameras. So you have an 8 megapixel traditional camera here and two 720p cameras. We saw that in the Dell Venue 8 7000 that we reviewed as well, and I suspect that that is really going to be a feature that gets marketed towards vertical folks, maybe in construction, real estate, anything where you really need to use depth calculations or a greater sense of 3D-ness in an image. You can even shoot 3D images, but you'll need 3D glasses to see them. I think for most consumers, that's not going to be something wildly exciting. The difference in tone and finish here is kind of nice and striking looking from the side. It looks like a pretty thin, modern laptop, doesn't it? Now, Dell would like you to buy both of these pieces together. You don't have to. You can just buy the tablet if you want to. It's $499 for the 16 gig model, and add $50 more if you want 32 gigs of internal storage. The keyboard itself is $139, or you can just buy the high-end model with more storage and with the keyboard for $679 total. An expensive proposition when you're thinking about this versus a laptop, but of course this is still lighter, even at 2.3 pounds together, and much less maintenance, obviously, and instant on technology. We'll talk about that, multitasking versus Windows and stuff a little bit later. So ports, right here is really hard to see, but it's got the little pokey tool kind of hole right here, or a paper clip, and this is an SD card slot, micro SD card slot. Micro USB 2.0 right here, and yes, it does support USB host, so you can use USB flash drives and stuff like that. 3.5 millimeter audio jack right there. Obviously, no ventilation required here. This is an Android tablet. There are no fans. It is completely silent. On this side, we have the volume control and we have the power button. Microphones. There's 3 total microphones here. It does have very good audio recording quality. Very good if you want to do, well, web conferences, that sort of thing, video chat. And it has a 2 megapixel front-facing camera, which is okay. Honestly, the cameras on the better tablets are sort of like your last major generation ago for smartphones. And that's what it looks like from the front edge, and this is what the bottom of the keyboard looks like. And we got little rubber feet over here to stop it from running away when you're typing on it. And when we open it up, we'll look at it from the side view first. Pretty tight hinge right here, and very sturdy hinge. This is the kind of thing where it's just not going to come apart much as I hit the volume button by accident there while I'm trying to make it come apart. In fact, it's a little bit hard to take apart by desire. If you yank here on each corner and pull towards you, that's how you're going to get it out of the barrel assembly. You can see how the angle works there. Now, take a look at this interesting spline hinge over here. So there's actually little connectors where it mates right there, and you can actually pull this off and put it on backwards as well. So that's how we take it off, and it's smart enough to deactivate the keyboard if you do this, so you don't have to worry about key presses doing anything. And say you want to use it as a stand, and there it is. You've got presentation mode, you've got stand mode, so you just want to use it on the coffee table, watching a movie, whatever, that sort of thing. You're happy to use the on-screen keyboard for just occasional data entry. You can do that. You can tent mode it if you want to as well. So that really is great. Like on an airplane tray table, it takes up just about no room whatsoever. Notice how vibrant this display is. It really is a stunning OLED display. Now, if you want that kind of super vibrant, beyond 100% sRGB color coverage, it's going to be this or the Samsung Galaxy Tab S or Tab S2. The Tab S2, of course, is gone with a 4:3 aspect ratio, which is pretty convenient for things like web browsing, word processing, and all that. But 16:10 adds a little bit in this dimension, so it's not so bad either, and you won't have such pronounced black bars when you're watching video. It's not quite as bright as the Samsung, but it gets pretty darn bright, and as you can see, it's fighting glare very well, and the viewing angles are wonderful. It's a stunning, really stunning display. You just look at this and, wow, I want to keep using it because it's so pretty to look at. One thing I will say about this is I know you folks love thin bezels because you think it looks all nice and modern. Sure, it does, but these are so narrow that it's very difficult to pick up this tablet holding it in landscape mode without actually accidentally activating something on the display. So be careful what you wish for. Now going back to the keyboard for just a minute here, this is actually one of the best keyboards I have ever used. For a 10-inch form factor, it's amazing. You even have a trackpad here, which the two-finger scrolling on this works better than a lot of Windows PC trackpads. That's kind of sad, well, statement about Windows PC trackpads, isn't it? You might find that if you're doing a lot of typing, you're going to have to go to the settings panel and actually disable it, though, because given how small the area is, you may brush it, and there's no levels of sensitivity for the palm rejection on this right here, so depends on you. Anyway, lots of travel, obviously lots of space here. It's really amazing. Of course, it's only 10 inches, so if you have really big hands, that might be a problem for you. But we reviewed for Mobile Tech Review on our website a lot of accessory iPad keyboards. This is really the best thing I've used so far among all the accessory keyboards, and it's backlit. Even nice white backlighting. Touch any key and the backlighting comes on, which again is a very rare treat for something that is a removable accessory Bluetooth keyboard. Makes it feel a lot more like a laptop when you're using it. So what's running inside here? We have Android 5.1 Lollipop running on an Intel Atom CPU. It's the Moorfield CPU Atom Z3580. That's a 1.33 gigahertz CPU with boost to 2.33 gigahertz. Sometimes you might see it listed as 2.33 gigahertz on some sites, but that's the boost speed, not the base speed. That said, this is still a very fast quad-core 64-bit CPU. It has PowerVR G6430 graphics, which Intel just refers to as Intel HD graphics, but they're actually licensing PowerVR graphics. It's a fast, responsive tablet, and you can see here the UI, other than Dell's little customized icons, is pretty close to stock Android here. The whole notification shade, all the experience happening here, the settings, it's pretty close to stock, and that is a good thing. Now, Dell has a couple of other software things like Dellcast for wireless display casting. Of course, it does support Miracast, and that feature in some ways is almost redundant with Android display casting as well, and they have their own special camera application, so you can use the 3D depth sensing rear camera gimmicky thing. Sorry, Dell. Yeah, sorry, Intel. It's fast, it's responsive. 2 gigs of DDR3 RAM. 2 gigs is not that impressive anymore. A lot of high-end devices we're seeing now are starting to come out with 2 or 3 gigs. Now, for a lot of multitasking, especially you can use Alt-Tab on the keyboard to switch between apps, that means you can be tempted to use a lot of apps concurrently on this, and that's one drawback of using a mobile tablet the good thing is that you're going to use a whole lot less power. It's instant on, fanless, all that sort of thing. Lower maintenance. The bad thing is that Android apps aren't always so good at saving state. So if you're actually using this for important productivity work, like we've got Word installed, for example, you can use Polaris Office, whatever you want. Save frequently, because if you minimize, if you switch out of that, you want to do some research on using Chrome or something like that, and you come back, it might not have saved your last state. So with that caveat aside, it does make a very good productivity tool when you've got it in laptop mode, and a great media consumption device like this. So let's see how this looks playing a video. We're going to play our Tab S2 video. We'll shoot it out to full screen. This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and Android tablets. We just don't see them that often anymore, but you can count on Samsung to, well, come out with a new tablet every so often. But this one's pretty exciting. Sound is pretty good from those speakers. Of course, it's still a 10-inch tablet, but that's a lot better than the anemic, teeny speakers firing from the edge of a lot of tablets out there. Won't name any names. Also, the saturation and things like the green Android on my shirt right there, really nice and vibrant. And you can see that it's using almost all of the screen to play 1920 by 1080 video. Highline one that, well, and your bars are very minimal there. So now, if you're using something like Word for productivity and good old laptop mode right here, you know, Word's become quite powerful, the mobile version that's available for Android and also for iOS, so it's quite familiar there. You've got all sorts of formatting, you've got track changes. It actually is a viable laptop replacement in that respect. I think, you know, if you need every advanced formula in Excel and function, you might not have it here, but the lion's share of what most of us everyday folks use in the Office suite is here. Of course, PowerPoint is also available, and so is OneDrive if you want to sync your stuff there, or you can use Dropbox as well. Dell has a Dropbox offer going with this device as well. You get some extra storage, the usual stuff that you'd expect. And here it is with its main competitor, the new Samsung Galaxy Tab S2, the 9.7-inch, which there is an accessory keyboard as well from Samsung. It's about $139, and it's kind of like a folio back with a keyboard that comes out. A different approach to multitasking right here. For those of you who are a fan of Samsung's multi-window thing, here we have a web browser going, and I can choose between things that I want to have right here. So for those who prefer the side-by-side kind of thing going on, that is something that the Dell doesn't have. Also, the Samsung is, well, it doesn't have the whole barrel thing going on for the hinge, so there's no front-facing stereo speakers, there's no larger battery. This is a considerably smaller battery, but it also weighs less than a pound versus 1.3 pounds. This is trivially light. So main differences there. Both of these guys are starting at $499, of course. So how about that rear camera? Notice over here we have two little inset views. We're seeing what the little 720p cameras do. Now the idea, but the depth sensing thing, try to say that one fast, they recommend being somewhere between 9 and 15 feet away from your subject. So there's a definite sense of depth and distance. It's not really going to do anything very interesting here, but you can see what the user interface looks like. So you can do a depth sensing picture if you want, and you can just take a normal photo if you want, or you can shoot 1080p video with the camera. It's an interesting concept. It's an absolutely acceptable camera, and it's up to you as to whether you like the 3D effects of the depth sensing camera or not. Now this has plenty of horsepower for gaming as well. We're doing the Asphalt 8 test as we often do, and it's looking beautiful. Look at those Super AMOLED colors. I'm going to crash because I'm turning it towards the camera to show you, but just really nice looking. And the quadrant test on this, we couldn't get a benchmark on it because it came up with an absolutely absurd number that couldn't possibly be right of 165,000. Go figure. But for the 3D Mark Ice Storm Unlimited test, it scored 20,198, and that is just simply fantastic. One of the highest scores that we've seen from an Android tablet so far. And for our Geekbench 3 number, it scores a respectable but not earth-shattering 923 single-core, 2964 multi-core. On Tutu, it scored 46,422, which makes it one of the faster tablets, but not as fast as the Samsung Galaxy Tab S2 that scored 53,000 there, beat it by 10,000 points. Of course, some phones are hitting the 60,000s now, but the tablets don't tend to have CPUs that are quite as fast as the phones. And honestly, you saw the performance in Asphalt 8, and when I'm mucking around the OS and doing all sorts of stuff. It's perfectly fast, this tablet. And the nice thing that the heavyweight gets you in return is room for a 7,000 milliamp battery, while Samsung is going down with battery size for their tablets to make them more small, thin, light, consumer, tantalizing, that sort of thing, compete with the iPad Air. Dell is like, no, we category to the serious business users who need all-day battery life. The Intel Atom has come a long way when it comes to power usage, and there was absolutely no way I could kill this in a day of use. Typically, it lasted me 2-3 days easily, about 8 hours of screen on time, which significantly beats the Tab S2 in terms of battery life. So if you actually do need to use this on the go, and it is designed to be a sort of laptop replacement where that's entirely a possible use case, it fits the bill. In fact, overall, you know, this is a tablet that I have to say that I really like. I love the keyboard on this. I love the way that it's designed. I love the way it locks in very firmly, that you can use it backwards for tent and just viewing presentation mode, whatever you want to call it. The backlighting on the keyboard, the tactile feel. This stunning display, it's a very sturdy, very, I think, attractive in a modern, maybe masculine way, if you'd like to call it that. It's all pretty good. Of course, you're going to pay for all it's pretty good, too. It's starting at $500 just for the tablet alone, and you got to throw in another $130 for the keyboard, and that's just for the 16 gig. If you need more storage, it's going to be another $50. It's not a cheap proposition either, so even though a lot of people think of the iPad Air as a productivity tool, and yes, there are still way more tablet-optimized apps for iOS than there are for Android. You've got your Office suite here, you've got a file manager, you've got the full suite of Google applications that are tablet optimized. You can cast your screen to another device with this, and you've even got some decent cameras with the odd 3D capability inside. It's not bad, actually, not bad at all. So that's the Dell Venue 10 7000, really one of the nicest 10-inch tablets of any operating system that you could possibly buy. To die for keyboard. It's just so nice to type on. The fact that it's backlit is incredibly rare for these removable Bluetooth kind of keyboards. Stunning display right here, wonderful color saturation, very sharp, good for productivity, also good for content consumption. Of course, this is an expensive tablet, but you do get some high-end features. You get a pretty fast Intel Atom CPU. You do get this stunning display. You get very good build quality, an interesting design, better than average front-facing stereo speakers. The only challenge is, as a productivity tool where they're hoping, again, that you'll buy with the keyboard, there are Windows 2-in-1 convertibles at the lower end of the price range, and this is almost butting up against it, especially if you go with a 32 gig capacity. Of course, this is a lot less maintenance involved, and there's something to be said for that too. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to visit our website for the full written review, and hit that like button.